right, you're welcome to another exciting edition of The Agenda. This week, we're going to be looking at a very interesting topic. Once again, I want to say happy independence to all of you, our viewers. You've been so great. I hope you're celebrating the 52nd anniversary of Nigeria. Now, Nigeria recently celebrated a 52nd independence anniversary on different notes. Well, some observers think that there is no reason to celebrate possibilities, while others think there is nothing to celebrate. Well, despite the varying views from different experts and national observers, the fact still remains that Nigeria has become a national project that requires urgent attention and solutions to different challenges. In achieving this, the quest for good governance cannot be overemphasized. Well, better conditions of living have been achieved in developed nations of the world. Now, in these countries, there are evidences of well-run educational systems. There is a good organization of industrial sectors, provisions of affordable shelters for citizens, and good national security and political stability. It is in the quest for more solutions to the good governance and challenges in Nigeria that this program, The Agenda, has been put together. And with me to discuss this interesting issue this week, it's rather a continuation of what we discussed last week, talking about the independence. Well, I have two very distinguished gentlemen in the studio, and one of them I have Mr. Ehis Eyehian. He has been here before. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a while.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Good to have you. He's the MD CEO of Fares Consulting, Fares Consulting. He's a social expert and public policy analyst. Once again, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
We also have the executive of International Christian Chamber of Commerce, an entrepreneur and social political analyst, Mr. Ntiense Obon Israel.
Thank you very much,
Thank you so much. I hope I pronounced it properly.
Pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you. All right, so like we said, we're going to be looking at celebrating possibilities, building a greater nation, Nigeria, in the spirit of the independence. All right, so first and foremost, do we all agree that bad governance has been the bane of underdevelopment and poverty in Nigeria? Do we agree, gentlemen, that bad governance, has been the bane of underdevelopment and poverty? Talking about political instability, talking about extreme, food insecurity. Is that the reason, bad governance? If it's a reason, maybe we could start from you, Mr. Hayes.
Yeah, I think the issue of bad governance, that's another way of talking about bad leadership.
Sure.
Because the governance is a product of what the leaders do. I think we've lamented this for quite some time, that the bane of our society, the bane of our nationhood is the fact that somehow those that have either seen leadership foisted, thrust upon them, or they've taken reins of governance by force, unfortunately, we don't seem to have had the best of our own people, because if you talk to most Nigerians, Nigerians are very brilliant. We are never short of ideas of how to move our nation forward, but somehow or the other, we've had the bad fortune, I should say, of having leaders who don't seem to have a vision of what they really want to do when they get into office. It looks like power is an end in itself.
Okay.
Even our politicians, many of them, even with all the promises they make while campaigning, they get into office and it's a whole new ball game. So I will agree with you that yes, bad governance, poor leadership has been the bane of our society.
Okay, so if you agree, but then there is this view from some observers that the leadership is more like a reflection of the citizenry, the total populace. So would you still rightly say or outrightly say that bad governance is indeed, the bane of underdevelopment in Nigeria and poverty also?
Yes, of course, you can't overflog that point. It is true. It is true in Nigeria, because it's also true outside this country, where you had the fortune and the blessing of having leaders. You can reel them out, nation upon nation, people who had leaders. And so when you look at everything about Nigeria, we are a potentially great nation. But I think it's safe to say one of the major missing link is this leadership. And so you ask, it's a product of followership. To an extent, depends on how the leaders also come.
Okay.
Because
they come from the people.
They come from the people, okay. But what I'm saying, it depends on circumstances that have brought them. When we begin to analyze the people who were founding fathers of the nation, who fought, who had a vision, liberate Nigeria, it's a great nation. You can't say you've had people like that again who are driven by a particular passion, particular vision. So you can't blame the followership too much. Okay. I mean, it's just that we haven't had the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, I've just been told by my producer that because of time, we might not be able to take a review, a little summary of what we had last week on the agenda. But of course, you know how to participate and get a sneak peek of what we had last week. All you have to do is go to that website, LoveWorldPlusNews.net. You can find all the videos there. You could even go to YouTube and search for yourself. But then the best way to go is to go to LoveWorldPlusNews.net. You'll find the blog, the agenda. Or you can send an email to agenda@loverplusnews.net. That's the way you can be a part of the show. Very soon, I'm sure I'm going to be getting some comments from you because you're part of the show. Okay, Mr. Ahis, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I learned a new word recently, and that word is the word kakistocracy.
Okay, kakistocracy.
Yes,
okay.
And it's an interesting word because it is defined as government of the worst of the people.
Wow.
In other words, a situation where the society is being led not by the best brains, not by the most enterprising, not by the most visionary, but by the worst of people. So when people say this thing about a society gets the leadership it deserves, but that's not really, it's not necessarily always so, because the experience we've had in Nigeria is a situation where some people have held the country hostage for a long time. We had the military in power for about 30 years of our 52-year history, from 66 to 99, apart from the 3-year period or so, or 4-year period that we had Shagari in the Second Republic. But essentially, now what happened was that we had the worst people foisted upon us by virtue of circumstances of history, and maybe also the failings of some of our politicians in the First Republic. But unfortunately, even when we came back to democracy, you see that because of all the false starts we experienced during the Babangida era, by 1999, the truth is that most people, the politicians who meant well for the country, a lot of them were not sure whether the government of Abdulsalam Abubakar was going to really hand over. Okay. So it's one situation where even as at 99, we didn't really, unfortunately, with all due respect to the few amongst them who are, well-read, educated, enlightened, exposed, and, who are brilliant, the truth is that if you look at our political class, they represent largely the worst of our society. And that's why, I'm one of those that try to encourage people to get engaged in politics, because we have always left our governance and our politics to the worst of our people. Those that, the people that had been political thugs, and it had been, for them, it's all about, remember the general in Ibadan, who is late now, the garrison commander there, it's about politics. A society cannot move forward the way politics is about what you can get. It's not about service, it's about what you can get and all that. And that's, just to emphasize the point you made, that there is the bane of our society. And the fact that it is not because we deserve this, it's because somehow we just, accident of history and some other factors, we are stuck with a cabal of people who have held this country hostage over these years. And it's almost like a relay race where they keep handing it over to themselves. And
the same circle of people.
The same circle of people. And so we are just marking time. You can't see any real progress. And there's a new word they came up with, a family affair, where there's one scandal breaks, they say, okay, it's a family affair.
They can sort it out themselves. You sort it out, and that's the end of it, nothing more. And then but we can't continue like this. Sure. Things are coming to a head in a country that the truth is that the prognosis for our nation, but for God, the prognosis of our nation is really very dire, because there are a lot of signals that we cannot continue our nationhood the way we've continued. I mean, the issues of Boko Haram, the issue of insecurity, the issues of, for a long time, people have been clamoring for a sovereign national conference, and but now things are coming to a head. I don't know whether it's true, but I read something, on Twitter earlier today, whether the government is getting ready. I'm not confirmed it to be so, but whether the government is actually now taking serious the issue of the possibility of a sovereign national conference in the coming year. The point is that we have problems in our polity, and until we come to a position where we can freely discuss our problems and even negotiate the terms of our nationhood, we cannot move forward. We can't pretend as if all is well. Yeah. And then from year to year, we just carry on.
it's not sustainable.
Okay, thank you so much. That was, I think we've dealt with that point, so we'll just move on. There's one point here that, lots of observers and analysts are saying this MDG, the Millennium Development Goals and Vision 2020, a lot of people are saying we should put that aside because it's almost like we cannot achieve it right now. What's your take on that? There are lots of policies also like this. A lot of people are saying we should, drop that Vision 2020 down. This is 2012. We're 52 years already. It looks like we're not getting there. The future looks very gloomy.
It doesn't matter what we want to phrase. We had Vision 2010, I think, before.
Yes,
now we have 2020, MDG. It is clear that when the foundation of something is wrong, you cannot build on it. I actually believe that the more as Nigerians we come and agree that we've been living a lie, you can't, it's not going to work. You don't need prophecy. You just need to look at the thing. This is why, the prognosis, people who look at us and accept God's purpose, they can look at us and say the way these people are going, they failed. I mean, I listened to this senator, Chukwumerije, also on the floor of Senate, where he challenged his other colleagues and said, how do you explain a nation? We say we're 52. Sometimes we try to encourage ourselves and say, well, we're not too old. We're
compared
making
to
some
other
progress.
nations. Yes.
And he says, look, how do you compare us a nation like Malaysia who came and took palm fruit here?
From us.
And today it's something else.
Number one.
That the more we tell ourselves the truth and begin on that road of saying we haven't done well. We haven't done well. Not with all that we have. The sooner. So my point is that call it anything. What are you building it on? In fact, I read an article this whole week where a former person who should know, who's been in government since the early 60s, questioned even whether we have a nation. I also even question that. We have a country. The truth is that do we really have a nation? Do the components of Nigerians, majority of them, feel more and more committed to this project? I don't share those who think that we'll break away. There are many reasons why I believe God will undertake, we won't. So my point is that let's go and make sure at the foundational level we fix it and agree exactly what kind of nation, so that then we can coin anything we want to coin it anything,
as long as
and know that we are all committed. It's a Nigerian project. We are all committed. Our lives are in there. We can sacrifice and say, we know where we're going. Otherwise, I am not too excited about whatever you coin. This is really the truth from my own perspective.
Okay. I have a comment from Victor Nyoko. Victor did not place his location here, but I'll just read it out to us. It says, we have not done that bad. So far on a scale of 10, I'll give Nigeria 4.5. What we need now is unity and the spirit of sportsmanship, and above all, one love among all Nigerians. Our leaders should try to be honest, and with God, Nigeria will thrive. Okay. That's
well, I don't know whether 4.5 over
4.5 over 10. What do you
when you know you could easily have 8, 9.
9, exactly.
When you have that
especially when we're copying policies from other countries.
When if you were to have a child who is very brilliant and then he comes home and said, Daddy, I managed 50. There's a way in which you look at it, you fail because you could have been doing 70, 80.
Exactly.
And I think it is this kind of sentiments we need to really try and disabuse our minds. This, we're not doing badly. I think we need to own up. I travel, many of us travel around the world, and many times I really feel ashamed. I really say to myself, we're 160 million people. You mean we can't get it together? I take a college, I feel ashamed. So for anybody to be saying, well, we're not doing badly, I think this will not help us.
Okay.
The earlier we say no, because we could have been at 8 or 9. And the more then we then can say to ourselves, no, we mustn't continue on this road. This is my...
So what scale do you think we're at, Mr. Aegis?
No, I think the score the person gave is
fair enough.
As in being factual, maybe. But I'm saying that, he said we are not doing bad. But he gave us 4.5. So it was a comment, the remark as to, it doesn't, there's a disconnect in that.
Okay.
He has said it, he said the truth is that, and what is more painful for me is that for as long as I can remember, as I became aware as a child, we'll be talking about the potentials of this country. In fact, we'll be discussing the same problems again and again. If our grandparents that have passed on, if they were to come back to life and hear us discuss, they would be wondering, but those are the things we are discussing. And that is quite tragic, because it means that we really are not making progress. Look at the political speeches that people that want to be governors or any other, look at the speeches they give now. Look at what was being said in the 60s. We are still promising electricity, we are still roads, water. We are not, and if you look at Nigeria's social indices, the Human Development Index, which the United Nations Development Program brings out annually, Nigeria is not making progress on all the key social indices. I mean, people discuss microeconomy and talk about how we have so much in our foreign exchange reserve, and so those things are just, those statistics are irrelevant, where the lives of the people, you cannot see any improvement. If you listen to the debate, the American presidency yesterday, the issue was about, that's been the slogan of the Romney campaign. Are you better off than how you were 4 years ago?
4 years ago.
What we should ask ourselves is that, are we, as people, are we better off than what we were in 67, in 70, in 75? The Nigerians are getting, last year, the National Bureau of Statistics brought out information about the poverty incidence in Nigeria. It was alarming. This is official. In fact, it differs from region to region. But the poverty index is so bad that almost 75% of our people are
termed poor.
Not just poor, but debt poor, you would say. And this is why this is so annoying, is that when you see the amount of money that is being spent by Nigerian politicians in Dubai, go to Dubai. If you see the kind of profligacy that and you find out, it's heartless, because the gulf between the poor and the rich is now, you wonder whether it can ever be bridged, because it's the greed and the impunity that even makes it even more painful. Because like you said, we ought not to be where we are at all. If even in Africa, look at a country like Rwanda. I've had the privilege to be in Rwanda, and I know my brother too has been there. Rwanda came out of genocide. And within a few years, in fact, I remember I met with one of the officials, in the Central Bank of Rwanda. 7 a.m. she was in her office, and when I went to see her, she was saying that they told themselves that, look, after this, we've had it so bad, we must do something. Many of them came from Europe, came from America, took pay cuts, and committed to rebuild their nation. Wow. Today, Rwanda is one of the icons of good governance in Africa.
Wow.
On many. They are not resource rich. They have just, they are guerrilla tourism and then bananas and all that. They are still quite dependent on aid. But it's a country that is making progress.
Of course.
The number of women in the parliament, in fact, it's been shown statistically that, the more women are involved in governance, somehow it reflects on how a nation is. That is one country that has shown that there's nothing wrong with this black skin.
Of course.
If you will just sit down, tell yourself the hard truth, and decide that, look, you want to move forward. We have not, we have a way of, like you said, and that's what mediocrity is. Mediocrity is not really about, mediocrity is when you are content with the average. You are just happy, there's a book, a popular book, I think Bob Mason called The Enemy Called Average. Mediocrity is when you think, you are not, it's okay, let's manage it. And whereas, in the Committee of Nations, we are receding. We are going down. I was talking to a Christian brother who was trying to say that part of our projects that were at the last day. I said, listen, is Australia not in the last days? Is Canada not in the last days? Are these nations not in the last days? Why are we the ones that must? But, so these are the religious explanations people give. But we must face the truth. We can make what is Nigeria going to be in 25 years' time? Where are we going? Are we making progress? Are we heading the right direction? And frankly speaking, we are not, it's clear that we are not heading the right direction. And, we can't continue the way we've been.
Okay. All right. Well, in the past 53 years or 52 years in Nigeria, we've actually been able to have Mohammed Ibrahim Abubakar, who is the current IGP, as the 53rd IGP in the country. So averagely, it's like we've had one for each year, as long as Nigeria is concerned. So what would you say we've achieved so far in terms of corruption in Nigeria? How far have we gone? What is done by the government to stem this tide of corruption?
Of course, if you go to, you have a way to measure, apart from
Sure.
what we see among ourselves. You know, Transparency International can give you the detailed,
their
factual details, perception, and so on. But I have been looking at the issue of corruption to ask ourselves, are we just patently corrupt? Are we, the Nigerian corrupt, or is it the system? I think part of the issue is the kind of system we have decided to run. Now, last week I was talking to some people in the petroleum industry, and I decided to check a little bit of where have we come
from
with petroleum, oil. You extract oil from somewhere, and then you take it to Abuja, and people sit and share the money. In some sense, I think the lack of a sense of owning something makes you really you will do anything to anything you don't own. Part of the issue of corruption, I mean, we have gone down. It's easy. You can look back. I read somewhere today, within the last few weeks, they were talking about former heads of state, and they talked about when Gowon was there. I mean, at least in terms of perception, as him as a person, he may not have been able to do much to tame it. You can't say he was as that corrupt, but you can't say the same thing for the subsequent people who have come. So I'm saying if you track that we're not doing well, but the issue is not even to analyze all this. The issue today is to try and say, so why are we like this? And what can be done? Part of why we are like this is many-fold. One of it is just the way we are organized. Who really owns? You will steal anything that does not belong to you. I mean, you will do anything with it. You will be responsible. If we had a different system than we're running now, not this unitary something, we say we're running a federal, it's not. It's not. We're still running, barely still a unitary system.
Yes.
And it does many wrong things to us, no initiative, and of course not to talk about law enforcement and on all of that. The thing just simmers down. The recent discussion about judges now being, being on the EFCC, pursuing them and so on.
The lawmakers,
not lawmakers, I'm talking about the judges.
The judges themselves.
Because when the judiciary, which is expected, they call it the last hope of the common man, to have gotten to the place where you are not only perceived not to be fair in your judgment, but even to be corrupt yourself. It really says we have really run very low. And so I'm proposing that part of the issue in dealing with corruption is to really go back to to the system, the structure that we're doing. I know that when people talk about devolving powers and really running through fiscal federalism, they say, okay, governors or whatever structure you use will be corrupt. I think it will be easier to confront a governor within a state or whatever geography than a mammoth something where it's nobody something you share it. And we're running, of course, a very unwieldy system. I personally don't think we should be running this kind of system if we're people who, like he said, have said to ourselves, so much has gone wrong with us. We're going to move forward. We can't afford to do this. And I think Nigerians are intelligent enough to define some systems that we can do. That this mental laziness where we think, oh no, don't touch it. No, we're intelligent. We should be able to construct and define, okay, we can deal this thing that looks like a pattern. I think if we do this, we can deal with it.
Because we're doing better outside of the country.
Of course.
Funny enough. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Israel. Thank you so much, Mr. Ease. We need to take a break. There is a report on the public lecture still talking about the Nigerian independence. We'll take that, and I have two comments right here with me. I'll read that also when we come back. This is the agenda, and we'll be back shortly, so stay tuned.
A national lecture in commemoration of Nigeria's 52nd independence anniversary was organized by Christ Embassy Church, Lagos Zone 1 to highlight the essence of Reach Out Nigeria campaign. The event was graced with dignitaries who delivered lectures on various topics of national concern. Lagos lawyer and rights activist Femi Falana spoke extensively and passionately as he emphasized on the actualization of unity in Nigeria. He said the search for unity in Nigeria has been going on since the amalgamation in 1914 until date, urging the church to lead the battle and be in the front burner in spreading the gospel and message of peace and unity.
If we are able to harness our immense, abundant human and natural resources, this is going to be one of the greatest countries in the world. And there is just no way we can make it unless we have hope in ourselves, unless we have confidence in ourselves. As a people, we are not going to get it right. And I want to beg all of you to think of the possibilities that exist.
Another speaker, Professor Ade Ojo, focused on Nigeria's education system. He said the gloom and decadence in the system is caused by lack of commitment and called on young people to be the agent of change.
If education has to be moved from its valley of depression and gloom, we need to determine and to vow from now that the destiny of our education, the upgrading of our educational system, and the improvement of all that will make our education to soar high, reside in the hands of all of us who are here.
The zonal director of the church, Pastor Larry Alabi, said as part of the Reach Out campaign, a movement by the Believers LoveWorld Incorporated, is to bring about change through the agency of the Word of God, which is found in Rhapsody of Realities. Analysts say Nigeria is in a delicate state, following the trail of terrorist attacks in the north, the flooding that displaced thousands in the central region, and the pipeline vandalization in the south. But with such a gathering of men of wisdom, they say Nigeria can only hope and pray to see possibilities ahead in the country.
Using the Word of God, using ourselves as agents of change, we will be able to affect the country.
Elizabeth Okugo reporting for LoveWorld Plus News.
All right, you're welcome back. Yes, this is The Agenda. Yes, your program that talks about very topical and bordering issues on politics and all of you as far as Nigeria is concerned. Well, okay, we left off with the lawyers and the judges and the rule of law. I was actually thinking that the rule of law is supposed to be a fair legal framework that protects the human rights. Where are we now? What can be done? Do you think we need to run independently as a judiciary system, or what exactly? Okay, we left off with you. Maybe we should start with Mr. Ahis so far.
Yeah, you see, you know, everything rises and falls on leadership. You know, the problem we've had on dealing with corruption is that, unfortunately, we have not seen the kind of commitment, personal commitments, on the parts of the heads of the governments we've had over the years to actually address corruption. During the Obasanjo regime, you know, the FCC was set up. The pioneer chairman of did his best, but at the end of the day, with all, it eventually became a tool that was used for political witch hunts, you know, and then with all the revelations we have on the scandals of Siemens and Halibut, we now see that it was all a charade. Now, when during the time of Yaradua, we also saw that, you know, the kind of he declared his assets publicly, made it open, but then he was the one giving cover to his major financier, the person of Bori, you know. And so, you see, the point, so then we now have a situation where we have Jonathan as the president, and I was personally disappointed when he refused to make public his asset declaration. Because that was, he has declared his asset from what the Code of Conduct Bureau has confirmed, but he says for the reasons he gave during the public discourse was that he didn't want to put some kind of pressure on other political office holders who will feel obliged to follow his example.
That's the pressure we need.
That is what exactly, this is a democracy. If you cannot stand the heat, don't enter the kitchen. If you want to enter public service, and you cannot be transparent about your income, your wealth, you have to business saving. So I was disappointed with that. And since the president came into office, The truth is that I'm not even sure whether there's any attempt to even fight corruption, because we've had all kinds of revelations of mind-boggling figures. Today we're talking about a scandal on the fuel subsidy of who knows? No one is not even sure of the correct figure, because the CBN says one thing, the Minister of Petroleum said another thing, the Minister of Finance said another. So we don't know. We're not speculating. Maybe it was well over 3 trillion naira that was involved. And to date, we saw them talking, not a few people being put on drama or limelight. Nothing has happened. Right now, we are not serious about. I'm not convinced that the present government is serious about fighting corruption. And this is the problem. So what we are feeding impunity. When you don't punish wrongdoing, you are only embodying others to follow that. You see, corruption is not a peculiarly Nigerian problem; it's a human problem. Yes. The heart of man is wicked and desperately so. Bernard Madoff is an American, but today he's in prison. He was for his corruption, for the Ponzi scheme he did. That societies, if you are caught, you will go for it. The problem here is that people that are corrupt know that nothing will happen.
That's
and
why
government,
they go about it.
even with all the pontification about fighting corruption, nobody, at least I'm not convinced that anything is being done. And so, it just keeps getting worse. That's why I said from the beginning that look, if Jonathan had come into power and said, listen, it's a new beginning. We have said transformation agenda, and shows personal commitment, making public his asset declaration, and then either compelling or putting pressure on every other person in his government to do the same, and ensure that all cases by EFCC are diligently prosecuted. Because we see a situation where people are being let off the hook by the court because of poor prosecution, haphazard prosecution, and it's like we're not. It's just like a joke. It's just like a joke. So we can't. Look, it's corruption.
Enormous,
if you want to put a figure on the impact of corruption in this country, it's amazing how much money has been stolen from this country since independence. It's amazing if you want to even hazard a guess. That's the actual figure that was money stolen. Apart from the impact of corruption by way of hospitals where people have died because somebody stole the money for the drugs, roads that were not constructed, so you have accidents. Look, corruption is killing this nation per second, and it is not sustainable. So I don't know what has to happen to the political leadership. They don't seem to get it. That look, this thing, they're even at risk, because this, people have said that we cannot have the kind of revolution we had in the Arab Spring and all that. But sometimes when you push people to the wall, you never know what kind of reaction will happen. And I'm saying
we saw that in January 1 as an example.
Yes, and that was really just an awakening.
Exactly.
Because the truth is there's poverty in the land. People are distressed. People are, the kind of crimes that young people do these days, you see that is born out of, some kind of sadistic frustration, I would call it. And our society is in danger on account of this. So we must come to a place where, when I watch the television, I see our legislators, when they resumed after how many weeks break, the first thing that they were talking about is where we heard that they were angry for 7 million naira increase in our allowance. And I'm like, these guys, do they know what is, which country are they in? You just wonder that how can you carry on with so much, is it naivety now or ignorance or what? Because this thing is not going to, it can't continue this way.
It can't continue this way. Do you agree, Mr.
Yeah,
Israel? It cannot.
He was finding an adjective to qualify.
To qualify
I almost call
it,
it wickedness. It's really wickedness.
But do you think we can, maybe make all these policies? We have EFCC, the ICPC, a lot of bodies fighting corruption. We also have. Do you think we can do something to marry all of it as one? Because you talked earlier on about systemic approach towards solving our problem.
Again, what he has said, we can do all that, but it is driven by that we really want to, at least at the level of leadership, number one. I didn't come there, but thank God he has touched it. It has to be clear. Let's remember, I think it was widely reported that when Muritala came to power, Muritala did something. I think I've read that a little bit, that he said, let's draw the line. In fact, he did something personal and said, things that I may have acquired and so on. I hear something like that, he returns some. So this is the kind of thing you see that inspires you. If it's not there, who is going to be inspired? You just said, if it's talk, you continue to talk. You can form 20 EFCCs and so on. And it will come to nothing. Because when you understand the weight of what corruption has cost us, you really need a heavy hand. I really believe those. I mean, lawyers are now saying you can't do special court. I think the thing has gone so bad that in Nigeria we should put our thinking cap and say, what do you need to do that is severe enough a deterrent? And the example is said, it's a pity that...
We can see the case of Lagos State, where the last man came on board, and I think there was so much of emancipation in the transportation sector. You know, in Lagos State, for example, where the last man officials were introduced, there was some level of peace and tranquility on the roads to an extent.
Yeah, we need
so if you're talking of a severe...
I mean, we need something, because the consequence of what it has cost us is not something you treat with kid's glove. And then you begin to pander with it. You really need something very severe. So, I mean, without that, and don't forget, if the people who have been, many politicians and even civil servants who have been beneficiaries of corruption are prepared to use that and fight.
Exactly.
Can you imagine? I mean, you hear things that are unthinkable. A governor, somebody who was a governor of a state, you are being accused, you just go to court and get a perpetual injunction. So I'm not a lawyer, but I'm just thinking, don't you have shame? Don't you have shame?
At least for your generation.
I mean, for your generation, when, okay, well, you, even if all you stole, what would you do? When the history is written of the state you say you ran, you stole so much money and ran, and maybe living somewhere, go to court and put injunction. If you're not prepared for public service, don't go there.
Exactly.
You know?
Okay, I forgot. I said I was going to read a comment to us. Thank God we still have time. I'll quickly read this one. We have two. The first one is from Victor Nwosu, Northampton, United Kingdom. Well, he's saying, well, who are we deceiving? Nigeria is a country richly endowed with a lot, and what has always been our issue is bad governance. I think he's also watching for him to be in sync like this. He says, if we can get a truthful government that can transform the country and the mentality of people, our country will be 1,000 times better than all these so-called advanced countries in the world, period. In Spain now, we can see what is happening there. It's supposed to be a developed nation, in quotes, you know, but then I'm hearing that they are paying about 60% tax on the citizenry. That is huge. Okay, since we're looking at celebrating possibilities in Nigeria, comparing Nigeria to those developed nations, in quotes, don't you think, at least to an extent, I know you will not pardon me for saying we're moving on, you know, we're trying and all of that, but then let's compare ourselves to these developed nations. They're facing a lot of natural disasters. They also have corruption, maybe in a different kind of system, but they're going through a serious economic depression right now. What do you think? What's
In fact, you see, that's why, you know, when you think of how blessed we are, you know, in fact, that is when you get all the more angry that we are where we are. Because, really, I mean, apart from the River Niger overflowed a few days ago.
Yes.
We don't have natural disaster. If you watch television and see what's going on in India, in the rest of the South America, in Europe, you know that we are really blessed, frankly speaking. We are the ones that use our own hands to do man-made disasters.
Exactly. That
keep people. Imagine the amount of money that was stolen by the pension people.
Scheme.
Old people that have worked and served this nation. Then somebody greedily steals the money and puts in his account. And then at the end of the day, you don't even see anything happening. You don't see. That is what is annoying. You see, I'm an optimist, because I believe there's a God in heaven who has a plan and purpose for our nation.
Exactly.
But see, I also know that, you know, it is not, fatalism is when you think, oh, will be, you know, say, whatever you do, it will be well. That is a fallacy.
Yes, it is.
Which is not scripture, supported by scripture. We must engage the resources, that are God-given resources as a people, and decide that, look, we want to make progress. Now, one thing I see which is positive is the fact that with social media and all that, a lot of Nigerians are getting more interested in what's happening in our polity and engaging. If you're on social networks, whether it's Twitter or Facebook, you see the amount of engagement of Nigerians. And so the kind of, you know, before now, Nigerians we use the word, oh, we are resilient people. which is another way of saying that we don't care, we take
Yeah,
things as they come. But I think that is changing because Nigerians now begin to ask, ask questions
exactly.
and place a demand. You see, most people don't change because they see the lights. They change because they feel the heat.
Okay.
We need to begin to put our elected officials on the spot. From the local government level. In fact, the corruption at that level is even much worse because what happens in most places that they're not even giving contracts where you cannot take feedback. They just share the money and that's the end.
And that's it.
We need to begin to engage our politicians and place a demand on them. It's not just about voting or elections. It's about what are you doing with our money. He mentioned something about this issue of the implication of our oil revenue and how it impacts our attitude. People have said that because most Nigerians don't pay tax. That's why they are not interested in what happens to the money. In fact, you hear a situation where someone say, don't mind. It's okay if the governor is eating money. It doesn't matter as long as after all he's performing. And I'm like, what is performing? You vote for somebody, he does a few things, steals a lot of the money, and you say he's performing. I heard that Bayelsa State is going to honor a convicted ex-governor. There are some people that you suspect who stole money, but this one is a convict. The court decided that Alem Sega stole money and was convicted for it. He's one of the people that, and yet Bayelsa State governor today is going to honor this man. As part of, he's also going to honor Abacha for creating Bayelsa State. As long as we keep celebrating
those that
kleptomania, celebrating mediocrity, and it's tragic because why would somebody who was voted for, why should that be his priority? But the point is, so we must no longer stand aloof as Nigerians and just watch what goes on. We must engage, place a demand upon what the government is doing, find out what is the budget figure, how was the money spent. It's going to take some kind of, one man can't make a forest, so there must be some kind of critical mass of that puts pressure on government and our leaders to begin to do right thing. Look at what happened on this issue of 5,000 naira notes. The hue and cry from Nigerians eventually compelled
the
president to step back. Now.
So what you're saying in essence is we need get involved.
The followership. We must begin to not be led by the news, as it were. We must begin to place a demand upon our elected officials and find out what is happening there. Yeah. The days where we sit by, we can't continue that. Look, this country, we all have a stake in the country. The leaders don't have a better stake than us. If most of them have no stake really, because some of them are mass money outside of the country, their children don't live here. It's just that they say if alarm blow, like they say, they're out of this place.
They're out of it.
We are the ones that are truly committed. We have many of us we don't have any green card. We have no second citizenship. We are here. So we must begin to take ownership of our nation and our polity and begin to place a demand on what the government does at all levels, not just the federal government. State level,
especially the grassroots,
local government, and see that things are done right.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hayes. That was a long and passionate one. Mr. Israel, I hope we still have time for you. Okay, but before we go to you, since we're rounding off, I'll just read this last comment from Peter Port Harcourt. Nigeria is a great country and can be greater if only our leaders can be sincere and faithful to this country. It's a very long one, so I'll just go straight to the end. It says, Nigerians have actually become disenchanted with the leadership because the leaders have become inhuman, and that's the truth. Thanks. Okay, thank you, Mr. Peter. Okay, in rounding up, what do you think, especially if we can touch a little on the education sector? How do you think we can harness the educational sector and impact on maybe the ICT-driven economy? Just in a few words, because we're already rounding up, we're out of time.
It's all about vision and leadership. Today, India is where she is because she had a leader many years ago who saw that I can impact education. They set up these technical colleges and so on. I think also in education, this is also another problem. All this craze for just university certificate. We need a review of the educational subsector so that you can have people who acquire skills. I believe in get the best education, but you need it must be tied to development and say, okay, we need people with this level of skills, and this is what somebody dreamt in India and began to set up those institutions. Today, India is a powerhouse that writes software and does all of this. And so all of that requires vision and re-engineering so that we can have the capacity, the workforce to be able to really do the kind of development. Because in my view, I believe very much because of God's purpose for Nigeria, Nigeria will rise, not in the way she is. So we're going to need people with a lot of capacity. And I think the encouraging thing to say to Nigerians today, the followership, let's no longer sit behind. Some of us, through various things, I can use this medium if you permit me to announce, next weekend, 11th to 13th of October, we're having a seminar, conference, and we're talking about arising. Princes arising, people who will have capacity to do things in Nigeria, here in Lagos at the Renaissance Hotel here in Ikeja. So it's a clarion call. We complained enough. Let's arise.
Let's arise.
Let's arise. And you and I can make a difference as we arise. There are things God will put in our heart. If we're faithful to do that, I believe that in a short while, there's a lot of work to be done, but in a short while, Nigeria can really arise and fulfill what God has, chosen her to be.
Thank you so much. I've had a very distinguished guest, gentlemen in the studio. Thank you so much. Once again, well, what I believe is if truly we believe that we are starting, then we should ask ourselves, how long will this rocky start end? Okay, because we need to really get there, and fast we should. We've been talking a lot about the celebrating possibilities and building Nigeria as a nation. Nigeria is your project because it is the only country that we have. This is Agenda, and I've been talking to Mr. Ahis Ayeyen. Thank you so
very much. It's a pleasure to have been with you.
Yes, I've really enjoyed myself so far, and I hope you have. Send your comments to agenda@loverplusnews.net. And also, I've been talking to Mr. Ntiese Ubon Israel.
It's a pleasure again.
Thank you so much. Passionate and patriotic Nigerians they have been. What are you going to do to ensure that we move forward? That is up to you. Until we join you same time next week. My name is Philip Ihaza, and the Agenda will come back to you same time once again next week. So until then, enjoy your celebrations of the Independence Day and be a patriotic Nigeria. Bye-bye for now.